Welcome back, everybody, to the Deep Dive. Today, we are going to be looking at,
Oh, this is going to be a good one.
yeah, this is a really, really interesting one, I think, that will resonate with a lot of people because it has real-world implications, even though it's something that happened on the international stage.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a situation that almost sparked a trade war
Yeah.
between the U.S. and Colombia.
And it all comes down to deportation flights.
So, everyone likes to think about economics as this, separate thing, But
Yeah.
this really shows how global politics can directly affect people's lives.
Yeah, for sure. So let's set the stage a little bit. This is Trump's second term.
Right.
And he's been taking a hard line on immigration.
Hmm.
And one of the things he decided to do, which is pretty controversial, is start using military aircraft
Interesting.
for deportation flights.
Yeah, I mean, you don't really see that very often.
Yeah, this isn't standard practice at all.
Right.
And so it immediately raised a lot of eyebrows.
It's definitely not the norm. And it wasn't just Colombia that wasn't happy about it.
Yeah.
I mean, Mexico, they flat out refused a military flight.
Yeah.
And Brazil actually even condemned how their own deportees were being treated on a commercial flight.
Oh, wow.
They even said that using handcuffs was degrading.
Wow. So, yeah.
So you can see how this is already causing a lot of tension.
Sure.
Now, into this situation comes Colombia's new president, Gustavo Petro.
Okay.
And he's a leftist leader. And, he took a really strong stance against these military flights.
Interesting.
And in one of his statements, he even compared the treatment of the deportees to some of the actions taken by the Nazis.
Wow, that's a pretty powerful statement.
Yeah.
I think it really gets to the heart of what this conflict was all about.
Yeah.
This wasn't just about logistics. This was about, core values,
Human dignity.
Yeah, human dignity and just how you treat other people.
It's about basic respect.
But here's where things get a little bit more interesting. Petro wasn't saying that he wouldn't accept any deported Colombians at all.
Oh, okay.
What he was saying is that he didn't want to use military aircraft,
Okay.
and he offered to use civilian planes instead.
Okay.
He even said that he would use his presidential plane to, bring these deported Colombians back to Colombia.
Wow.
In a what he called a dignified return.
So he's really trying to find a way to uphold their dignity.
Yes.
While still addressing the issue.
Yeah, he was condemning the way they were being treated.
Right.
But he was trying to find a more humane solution.
I see.
Now, Trump,
Of course.
known for being...
Not exactly subtle.
No, not subtle at all.
Yeah.
He responded to this with a threat.
Oh, boy.
A threat of a trade war.
Or a trade war.
And this wasn't just some idle threat.
Yeah.
He specifically threatened to place a 25% tariff on all Colombian imports.
Ooh.
And he said that he would increase it to 50% in a week.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, this is a really big deal because Colombia's economy is really dependent on trade with the U.S.
Yeah.
It's their third largest trading partner in Latin America.
Right. I mean, think about it for a second. All the things that we get from Colombia,
Coffee,
coffee, yeah, flowers,
textiles,
yeah, textiles, all sorts of stuff.
a lot of fruits and vegetables.
Right, exactly. So all of a sudden, those things are going to become a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
For people in the U.S.
For average people.
Yeah, and it could even disrupt entire industries and supply chains.
Yeah, it could have a huge ripple effect.
Totally.
And it wasn't just the tariffs either.
Oh, there was more.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, boy.
He was threatening travel bans for Colombian officials.
Wow.
Visa revocations.
Wow.
Emergency financial sanctions. He really pulled out all the stops.
Yeah, so these financial sanctions, what does that even mean for people?
Well, they're basically restrictions on financial transactions.
Okay.
And access to U.S. financial markets.
So this could really hurt businesses in Colombia, especially ones that, rely on U.S. investments or loans.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So while this might all seem just like a political standoff, happening thousands of miles away.
Right, yeah.
You have to think about the real-world implications.
Exactly.
Imagine that you're a Colombian coffee farmer.
Okay.
And suddenly your main market, the U.S.,
right.
becomes much harder to access.
Yeah.
Because of these tariffs.
Because things are more expensive.
Yeah.
And so they don't want to buy it anymore.
Yeah. And so that's a direct hit to your livelihood.
Wow.
And it ripples out from there, and it affects the entire Colombian economy.
Yeah, so it's not just some abstract thing. This is affecting real people
exactly
in their everyday lives.
And it would affect everyday people here in the U.S., too.
Absolutely.
Because like we said, everything would get more expensive.
Yeah. So, it might seem like something that's happening far away,
right?
But it actually has the potential to touch all of our lives.
Exactly.
So these actions by Trump weren't just empty threats. they could really devastate the lives of everyday Colombians,
Yeah.
from farmers to business owners
Yeah.
to, families just trying to get by.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal, and it shows you how these international incidents
Yeah,
can really have a huge impact on everyday people.
absolutely. And I think that's something that's really important for people to understand.
Yeah.
It's not just about politics.
Yeah.
It's about people's lives. And it wasn't just,
Oh, yeah.
the U.S., they actually suspended visa processing at their embassy in Bogota.
So that's a huge deal.
It is,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, think about it. Like all the Colombians who maybe had plans to visit family in the U.S.
Right.
or go there for business or even to study,
Right.
suddenly everything's on hold.
Yeah, and I can only imagine
Yeah.
the uncertainty and the fear that created for people.
Absolutely. It throws everything into chaos.
So, facing all of this pressure,
Yeah.
this economic pressure, this potential turmoil,
Right.
Colombia had to make a decision. And in the end, they conceded. They agreed to accept the deportation flights,
Including the ones on military aircraft.
including the ones on military aircraft.
Wow.
It must have been a tough decision.
It must have been, I mean, from a purely economic standpoint,
Right.
the alternative was just too risky.
Right.
So the tariffs and the sanctions, they were put on hold.
Right.
But the message was clear.
Yeah, don't mess with us.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it really shows you the power imbalance on the global stage.
Yeah.
When a superpower like the U.S. flexes its muscles,
Right.
smaller countries, they don't really have a lot of options.
It really makes you think about how much leverage a country like Colombia actually has
Yeah.
when they're facing these kinds of threats.
Especially when those threats are coming from such a powerful country.
Yeah.
And, this wasn't an isolated incident either.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Trump, he's used tariffs like this before.
As a weapon.
As a weapon, yeah, in other international disputes.
And so this whole episode, it sent shockwaves through the region.
Oh, absolutely.
Other Latin American countries are watching this very closely.
Oh, yeah, they're taking notes.
Yeah. They're wondering if they could be next.
It makes you think, if you were the leader of one of these countries,
Right.
what would you do?
Would you prioritize your country's economic stability?
Right, or would you take a stand?
Yeah. Even if it meant risking your economy.
Exactly. It's a tough choice.
It is a tough choice, and there are no easy answers.
No, there aren't.
And, beyond the economic side of this whole thing,
Yeah.
we can't forget about the human side.
Right, the people who are actually affected by these decisions.
Yeah, imagine you're a Colombian
Okay.
who has built a life in the U.S.,
Right.
and now you're being deported.
Sent back to a country you might not even remember.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking.
It really is. It's a huge disruption to families,
Yeah.
to communities,
To people's lives.
to individual lives.
It really shows you that these decisions that are made by politicians, they have real consequences for real people.
And it brings up another point, too.
What's that?
The use of military aircraft for these deportations.
Yeah.
It
For
feels
like a show of force.
like a show of force. Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost like a way to intimidate other nations.
Yeah, like a power play.
Yeah. And it makes you wonder.
What does this say about the U.S. and how they approach international relations?
And what kind of long-term impact is this going to have on U.S. relations with Latin American countries?
Exactly. Is this going to lead to more resentment?
Right.
More distrust?
Yeah.
Is it going to make it harder for them to cooperate in the future?
These are all really important questions.
They are. And, this incident also forces us to look at the bigger picture.
The ethical side of things.
Exactly. Like, are we as a global community
Yeah.
really doing enough to protect the dignity and the rights of people who are being deported?
Yeah.
These are tough issues.
They are really tough issues, and there are no easy answers.
No simple solutions.
But it's something that we need to think about.
Absolutely.
We need to be mindful of the human cost
Yeah.
of these political decisions.
Especially when we're talking about things like economic pressure.
Yeah.
And forced displacement.
We need to have these difficult conversations.
We do.
And consider everyone's perspective.
Everyone involved.
And try to find solutions.
Solutions that are fair.
That are fair and that prioritize human dignity.
It's a challenge.
It is.
But it's a challenge that we have to face.
We have to face it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take a minute to kind of recap everything we talked about today.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack.
It is a lot. We started with, what seemed like kind of a straightforward issue.
Right, this clash over deportation flights.
But then as we dug a little deeper,
Yeah.
we realized it's so much more complicated than that.
It really is. I mean, we're talking about economics.
Right.
ethic.
Power dynamics.
Yeah, the whole thing is a really good example of how interconnected everything is.
Exactly. And, it really highlights how these political decisions that seem so abstract sometimes,
Yeah.
they have real consequences for real people.
And not just in one country either.
Exactly, both here in the U.S. and abroad.
It's a global issue.
And so, as we wrap things up here,
Yeah.
I think it's important to remember that there are no easy answers to these questions.
No simple solutions.
No simple solutions. We have to weigh different values.
Right. Economic interests versus moral obligations.
Yeah, and we have to think about the long-term consequences.
Both for the U.S. and for other countries.
And ultimately, I think it comes down to, as individuals,
Yeah.
trying to stay informed.
Absolutely. Educating ourselves.
Yeah, and engaging in these difficult conversations.
Because that's the only way we're going to find solutions that work for everyone.
Yeah, so we hope that this deep dive has given you some new insights.
Some new perspectives.
And maybe even inspired you to learn more about these issues.
Yeah, keep digging, keep asking questions.
That's what the deep dive is all about.
Thanks for joining us on this journey.
Yeah, we'll see you next time for another deep dive.